All right, welcome into Locked On Horned Frogs. Special edition today. We have a little crossover episode with Chris Level of Locked On Texas Tech. He also does sidelines for the radio broadcast, so he'll be in Fort Worth on Saturday afternoon. And Chris, I guess to start, Joey McGuire, he's one of those guys. It's hard not to love him when you hear him talk. It's hard not to kind of buy into the enthusiasm that he brings to whatever he's doing. So now that the dust has settled a little bit, you got 8 games in year one. What are your impressions of kind of the identity of Joey McGuire as a head coach and his football team?
Yeah, Stephen. Well, he's an energy guy, and you're right. I think he treats everybody the same, and I think that goes a long way in this state, in this part of the state, and all those things. I think that he's such a because this was just to be honest, this was an outside the box hire, to hire a guy that technically wasn't even a coordinator, but he was such a known quantity in this state from a coaching standpoint at the high school level, and then recruiting, and then obviously he had really good experience in Waco under Matt Rule and Dave Aranda, and they've obviously turned that program around kind of twice while he was there. But I think it's look, I think the Tech fan base wanted an energy guy. They wanted a guy that they could kind of feel optimistic about and get behind and all those things. But it's been fun to kind of watch his dream come true, if you will, because I think this is kind of dream job type stuff. His kid, his daughter went to Texas Tech, and he spent a lot of time in Lubbock and in West Texas and all those things. But it's Stephen, it's been fun to kind of watch him because he's it's not like he's a pup. I mean, he's in his early to mid 50s, and so I think it's something that he's been around the game for a long time, and he's put a really good staff around him. And there wasn't a ton of expectations around this team this year. I mean, this is a bit of a rebuild, if you will, just trying to get some traction from a recruiting standpoint. But I think that they have competed, they've fought, and been fun to kind of watch him maneuver his way through that.
So the quarterback situation, I'm sure you've heard some questions or heard some discussion.
Oh, yeah. It's, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about it this week. It's funny. I forgot, like, Tyler Shough actually won this job, I guess, coming out of camp. So he was the one that they thought would be the starter. Donovan came in and did a nice job. And, I obviously don't watch Tech every single week, but he's just an electric player. I felt like they were sort of headed in a nice direction with him. They went to Behren Morton. So I guess first, Chris, what was kind of the reasoning behind that change? And then what do you expect? Because I know on Saturday they ended up technically playing all 3 of them, but what do you kind of expect when they roll in Fort Worth and face TCU this week from that side of the ball?
Yeah, Stephen, I would tell you that unfortunately, it's really like this the past decade. There's a few exceptions in a few seasons. They just had a hard time keeping the quarterback healthy around here, and it's when Mike Leach was here, there was a stretch where you had a healthy quarterback every year, and Cliff Kingsbury and BJ Simmons, Cody Hodges, Graham Harrell, just this stretch, and you played really good football. But for whatever reason, in the last decade or so, you just kind of haven't had any good luck at that position, keeping a guy healthy and playing all 12, 13 games, whatever it would be. And that's been the same case this year. I mean, they felt really good about their quarterback room coming into the season, but to think that you're 7 or 8 games in and you've played 3 of them as starters, I just was like, this is just comical at some point. And, Tyler breaks his collarbone, and so he misses a lot of time. And then Donovan plays okay, but turned the ball over a bit too much. But then he gets kind of dinged up, and that week before he could have still played, but I think there was a shoulder and a knee issue that he was dealing with. And I just think they basically said, let's what gives us the best chance to win? A kind of a compromised Donovan Smith, or let's give Behren a shot at this. And he went to Stillwater and then and played well, and then obviously did the same thing against West Virginia here in Lubbock. And last week versus Baylor was the first time that he kind of looked like a freshman.
Right.
He's extremely talented. I think that's who you'll see is Behren. I think he's kind of the future. I don't think there's any doubt about that, but I do think you'll see Donovan Smith as well in certain situations. I think that that's kind of what they feel like is maybe best, is playing to his skill set. He's a bigger kid, about 6'4", 230, maybe a little, and pretty fast and all those things. So I think QB run game, short yardage, red zone, stuff like that. with him. That's just how they feel like, and they haven't made, that's not a big secret or anything. And Shuck is the one you just feel bad for, because I think he got hurt last year and was playing pretty good up until that point, and then he just kind of transferred here, and that's just been the story. Is it's basically, it's been the same injury in back-to-back years, and he had surgery on it this year, and I think he was really ready to get back in it. And then last week he just comes in. You could just tell the arm strength's not there, through an interception on the first play, and probably not the best situation to put him in, with Baylor pinning their ears back and you're way behind, and they were just trying to knock some of that rust off. But a long answer there, but I think you'll see Barron start. I think you'll see Donovan too. And I would tell you, and they've made no secret about this either, that there's some stuff that they've got with all three of them in the game at the same time. I have no idea what that looks like. I have no idea who's doing what and when you would win or how much you would do some things like that. But at this point, Texas Tech doesn't have a ton to lose, and so I think they're just trying to keep guys engaged and keep them playing, if you will. So anyway, that's a long answer for a simple question.
No, that's good stuff. And that is a formation to watch this week. I wanted to ask you about, so fourth down does not necessarily mean that this group is punting. I know that's something that's also been kind of an identity factor. Is that, I know Joey obviously has a hand in that, and Dave Aranda kind of last season and this season as well, he transitioned to that sort of philosophy as well.
Yeah.
But Chris, is that just Joey? Like, is that what he thinks in his mind? Is that more Zach Kittley and the offense kind of feeding into it? Why are they sort of taking those risks, I guess you could say, so often?
Yeah, Stephen, I would say that there's a couple of things. This is Joey's thought process. I think that he didn't really have to sell his staff on it, but this is just the way that they're gonna play it. I think too, Texas Tech isn't just overwhelmingly talented, especially on the offensive side. This is where, I mean, almost everybody on that side of the ball can and will likely come back next year. That's where their youth and experience is across the board. And so I think that they're trying to give themselves a bit of an advantage by just pressuring the defense, by going for it so much. And they've had some success. Sometimes it's blown up. I mean, that's the chances you take. I just think that you feel like that over time that will benefit you more than it will hurt you. And so, yeah, second down is like, well, no, hold on. Like third down is like second down to them. How about that? Right. Let me rephrase that right. Yeah, because and some of it, Stephen, has to do with, okay, are we ahead? Are we behind? Is it 4th and 8 or is it 4th and 2? Is it, where are we on the field? I mean, there's different dynamics that tell you whether, okay, this is a go, or hey man, send the punter out there, kick it, or kick the field goal. Joey has maintained that he's got the ultimate say so, and if he wants to just go with his gut or overrule it, or hey, the temperature or the weather is altering this or whatever. But yeah, they're going to put their foot on the gas, and we've seen it because they've trailed in some of these games. So they start going for it early in the second half if they're trailing, and I would expect to see that again. If they're ahead, they're not as aggressive. So that's just the reality of kind of how they choose to play it. And they're not, and Tim DeRuyter, the defensive coordinator, because I mean, I've asked him, I'm like, hey man, are you okay with this? Because it kind of can put his defense in a bad spot. And he's like, man, if I'm in Vegas and it's the dealer shows 16 or I've got 16, I'm hitting on it every time. Over time, it's going to work. And so he believes in it too. And so there's no bad blood, amongst the staff of like, man, you're putting my group in a bind. No, everybody knows the rules and everybody understands that. They meet about it weekly. And so, yeah, that's again another long answer, but yeah, they're going to go for it on 4th down quite a bit.
The talent level on offense, as you just talked about. So is Xavier White kind of the guy that breaks that mold a little bit? Is he become the go-to player that can sort of change the game for them?
No, I don't think they have one. I think that's in some ways that's the beauty, like obviously in Fort Worth is Quentin Johnson, there's Kendre Miller, and you kind of know where the ball's going a lot of the time. This is not a situation. So I think that they're trying to view it as a positive in that any given Saturday it could be any guy. Look, there is some talent. There's just not like NFL talent. There's nobody here from a skill player standpoint that is bad. They just are either young or inexperienced or haven't done it a lot at this stage yet, maybe haven't taken that next step. But we've seen Trey Cleveland, Xavier White, Miles Price when he was healthy, Jaron Bradley. They've all had these big moments and big catches. But is anybody the go-to guy week in and week out? No, that was Eric Ezukama, who's playing for the Dolphins now last year, and he elected to leave early and go to the NFL. Their running backs are very good. They don't have breakaway speed like a Miller does or anything like that. So Roderick Thompson, I think he's like fourth on the all-time touchdowns list at Texas Tech in history, which is a big deal. Taj Brooks has been really good. So they're just solid all the way across. Their tight ends are really good. Some weeks they're featured, other weeks not as much. And then we've talked about all the different quarterbacks that are playing. So there's just not the one guy on offense that's an all-conference type guy. But I think they try to hit you with depth, and there's just no drop-off when some of that depth comes in.
Last question about the offense is I'll just ask about the offensive line. I know they've had some issues lately. Is that continuity problems? Is that kind of shuffling guys around, or just having some younger and experienced players at that position group?
All the above. I don't know if they're ultimately very good up front. I think they want to be a lot better. I think that's been a lot of when they've had issues on offense, that is really where it's stemmed from. They knew this was going to be an issue way back in the spring, and they tried to add, 3 or 4, maybe I think it was 5 portal guys. Mm-hmm. They added one from Oklahoma State, one from USC, one from Tennessee Martin, one from Western Kentucky, and one from University of New Mexico. I think the problem there is that the maybe the best one was from Western Kentucky, played for Zach Kitley and Stephen Hamby, who's the O-line coach up there. Got hurt in the summer, had to have surgery, out for the year. So that would have been their best one. He would be playing a starting guard spot for you now. And then I think Monroe Mills, who's their starting right tackle, or got dinged up a couple of weeks ago. So he may be back this week, may not, but he's been the better of the two. And then the USC kid, Ty Buchanan, he's a redshirt freshman. So it's all in front of him. So what they brought in didn't really help as much as they had hoped initially, but it's a young group, and they've just been okay. I think they have their moments where they get overwhelmed. They have moments where they're that's part of the tempo that you see too, just trying to protect those guys too, and not asking them to do too much. So I think that's been a reason why they go so fast, is because you're not going to ask those guys to have to block for 4 to 5 seconds, just a couple of seconds kind of thing. So when they're at their best, they're going really fast. So, but that's the crux of the issue really on your team, is just kind of the lack of depth, talent, and experience up front on offense. And they'll certainly try to address it in this offseason again.
So we'll talk about the defenses kind of generally. I saw you and Casey had an episode yesterday about, like, this is sort of the wonky matchup in this game, because both defenses have some flaws, and which one can sort of hold up against some high-powered offenses. TCU's made a living just basically trying to survive until halftime, and then kind of flipping the script a little bit with making some adjustments. What's the biggest strength for this Tech defense, or what has it been in the times they've played well this year?
Yeah, I think that's where the experience all is on this team is on their defense. They're very old, especially on the back end of that defense. They have the legitimately really good corners that are both 6'3" that have a chance to go to the league after this season. I think they're really old at safety. That's where you can go look at the depth chart, and like, you've got a Wisconsin guy, you've got a Texas guy, you've got a Duke guy. I mean, there's a variety of transfers back there that have been actually in the program for a couple of years. And your two starters at corner is an NC State transfer, and I'm trying to and a UCLA transfer. And so they're just old, and that's where it needs to be good, because that's where that side of the ball is going to have to do some things for you. And then, but to answer your question, the strength has been like Tyree Wilson. I mean, he's one of the best defensive players in the league. He's potentially a first rounder. I think if there's any criticism there, and I think Joey has said this publicly, they just haven't taken the ball away enough. They haven't created enough turnovers. Mm-hmm. And that's what this team needs, because they're turning over way too much on offense. And so when that number's going one way and not being evened out because your defense can't take it away, because you put West Virginia to sleep by taking the ball away, I think 4 or 5 times against the Mountaineers, and then that game turned into a blowout. And that was why. And I think if there's any criticism there, it's because they need to do a better job of creating takeaways, strip sacks, picks, just whatever, creating more pressure. And obviously against TCU, they're going to have their absolutely their hands full against that group. So that's what I would tell you there.
And I remember Joey was like the turnover coach at Baylor. Like they kind of appointed him that position. Is that something they feel like they can coach these guys on, or do you believe that's more of just a personnel issue?
Well, they're trying. I mean, they've got the personnel to do it. So at some level, it's just they come in bunches. Some of it's luck, but they just some teams, man, it's just kind of one of those years where you just take it away and you just fall into turnovers, and then you pressure and all that other, it's not, they talk about it every day. They wear shirts. They try to, mention it a gazillion times, take three. And so it's just a mindset trying to keep those guys, engaged on that, but Max Duggan doesn't throw it to the other team. I think TCU's +6 in the turnover margin this year. This is just part of why TCU has been so good this year, is they've done a good job of taking care of the football. So but if you're going to kind of get your fortunes turned here, and you want to have a chance to compete in this game, you're going to have to create some takeaways, or you just simply cannot turn it over on offense if you're Texas Tech. So, we see all these slogans and the coaches, they try to do different things, but it's all just like a mental game, I think, with Joey and these guys.
Well, before we go, so the Frogs right now, I mean, they'll be at home. They haven't really blown the doors off a lot of teams this year. Tech has been kind of a mixed bag in what you're going to get week to week, but do you have a feel for this matchup and how it plays out?
Well, Stephen, I would have told you that Tech was very consistent up until last week. Okay. I think that even in their losses, they had fought. They competed. I mean, they had a chance to take the lead early in the fourth quarter in Manhattan. They were in it till the end against Oklahoma State before Oklahoma State just kind of pulled away. And they were down 20-0 at NC State back when Devin Leary was healthy, and the Wolfpack were ranked, I think, in the top 15 in the country. And that was a Saturday night. You're down 20-0, and you come back and you're into that game before some turnovers happened late in that game. But then last week happened, and you just kind of – and even last week, it was 24-17 right at the end of the third quarter. And then the turnovers started happening. So if anything, I would have told you that they'll fight you. They'll compete. He's squeezing everything he can out of this group. They're very motivated. They like each other. They're just not super talented at some places yet compared to some of the NFL talent that I think Sonny's coaching right now. So I would expect them to bounce back and fight and play hard. I just wonder if you can score enough points and stop that TCU offense enough to make this a game or to compete. But funny things happen. I don't know what to expect. I would have just told you I don't really know what to expect now because of what I saw last week in Lubbock. They just looked Baylor looked like, I mean, they played their best game of the year. They're kind of figuring it out. Baylor, that was everybody had picked Baylor, so many did, to win the league, and that was the team that everybody thought they'd see, but Baylor had not looked like that up until this point. And so but I don't know if that was a Baylor thing or if that was a Texas Tech thing. I guess we'll find out this weekend.
It's Chris Level. He hosts Locked On Texas Tech. And Chris, if folks are more interested in the work of the podcast, is the best thing to do just subscribe on the YouTube channel?
Absolutely. Yeah, I know you're doing a good job. You've been doing this for a couple of years, but Casey and I just started doing this for Locked On, and we've been doing it since late August. I guess it's been fun, but Locked On Tech, I guess on Twitter, but Locked On Texas Tech on YouTube and RedRaidersports.com, and obviously I'll be on the sidelines this weekend at Amon Carter, but looking forward to it. But I appreciate you having me very much, man. You do a good job.
Hey, we appreciate it. Enjoy the game Saturday. And
all right.
This is Locked On Horned Frogs, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.